Hey y'all, who dat and what is up? I am Jeff Nowak, and this is a preview edition of Inside Black and Gold, getting you ready for Week 5 Saints. 0-4. I'm tired of that O. 0-4. Hosting the Giants, the G-Men, Big Blue, if you will. 1-3. 1-3. They're coming in on a high. This is a team that's riding high off of the upset of the week. They upset the Chargers, a team that I don't think many people gave them a lot of hope to beat. And they did it in a very specific way. And we'll talk more about that. We're going to have a Giants reporter on, Ryan Dunleavy, reporter for the New York Post, talk about what's going to go on with the Giants. How are they going to replace Malik Neighbors? I don't know if you can replace Malik Neighbors, but they're going to try. So how are they going to do that? We're also going to have Steve Geller on. We're going to get into the matchup. We're going to do X Factors. But the first segment here, I want to get into the injury report. Also got a good bite from Drew Brees that I want to dive into, hear from Brandon Staley, hear from Doug Nussmeier. What do we think about the matchup? All that good stuff. There's a very long injury report. There's 26 names on it. 26. There's only 53 men on each roster. So that kind of gives you the idea. There might be some absences and there might be some injury question marks at the end of the day, but we're going to hit a quick break and we're going to dive right into that. Remember, if you haven't subscribed yet, please do that. Hit me up on Twitter at Jeff_Nowak. You can follow Steve Geller at Steve Geller WWL. You can follow the show at Saints_pod. And you can catch up with the latest at WWL.com. You can also listen to myself and Steve Geller on the pregame show to the pregame show starting at 8 a.m. on Sunday in WWL. And on the broadcast, I'll be out there on the sideline. I'm excited to get back to the Superdome after a couple weeks on the road. And I think the Saints offense is excited to get back to the Superdome too, so they can stop trying to silent count their way to a bunch of wins. But yeah, I'm doing this because this is how they trigger the snap. That's how you figure out when to snap the ball. When you can't hear yourself think. Got to start bringing that into my daily life. But all right, who dat? Go Saints. We'll be right back. And we're back on Inside Black and Gold. Jeff Nowak here for another preview edition. Saints 0-4, hosting the Giants 1-3. The Jackson Dart-led Giants, or I should say the defensive line pass rusher-led Giants. And we're going to talk a good bit about the pass rush. We're going to talk about what the Saints need to do. But first, let's just hit the injury report. It's a long one. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on it, but just understand there's a lot of names on here, so much so that I can't even put up the entire thing next to me like I have been doing. I'm going to have to break it up for the Saints and the Giants, because if I put the whole list on there, the words would be so small you wouldn't be able to read them. So let's start with the Saints. I'll pop that up to my left, and let's start with two players who returned to practice on Thursday. If you listen to the mini episode on Wednesday, both Juwan Johnson and Trevor Penning did not participate in practice, but they were there. They were out of uniform, but they were kind of engaging with their position groups. And that's usually a pretty good sign that a player is pretty close to getting back on the field. And, you know, when you see him out there, you feel like, okay, they're probably going to play on Sunday. Just for perspective, I have not seen Chase Young anywhere near the field since he's been hurt. He's already been ruled out. Kellen Moore continues to say, hey, there's no setback. There's nothing. He's just going through the process, doing all the work. But when you're getting ruled out on a Wednesday, something's not right. And I do think the Saints are not doing Chase Young any favors by not giving out any information. That's all I'll say. Because clearly the injury was more significant than they thought. Otherwise, he would have ended up on IR if he was going to miss 5 weeks. Not ending up on IR is just a sign that they thought this was going to be a shorter term injury than it is. And I don't know, the void of information is not helping anybody. I get it. You don't want to give out information if you don't have to. But in this case, I think you'd be better off leaking something just to give people an idea of what he's dealing with. But that's neither here nor there. We're not going to see Chase Young on the field this week. So you're going to get another heavy dose of Carl Granderson, Cam Jordan, and Chris Rumpf. Okay. But the good news, again, Trevor Penning, Juwan Johnson, back out at practice in a limited capacity. It's a good sign that they'll be available. Both guys dealing with ankle injuries. We've kind of got the contagious ankle injuries. Every year, it seems like there's a certain injury to a certain body part that becomes contagious. And we've seen 4 different players end up on this week's injury report with new ankle injuries. Otherwise, like ankle injuries that they did not have going into the game last week. And that was Juwan Johnson, who kind of went down awkwardly on the opening drive of the game. Didn't miss a snap. He stayed in the game, but it was pretty clear to me watching him, and he wasn't moving around very well. So hopefully that's not something that impacts him for an extended period of time. Hopefully it's something he can kind of work through and get back. If it was a high ankle sprain, he would not be playing. So that would mean it's somewhere in the low ankle area. That's a good sign. Trevor Penning, same thing. He finished the game. Both these guys finished the game. And, you got to give him credit for kind of battling through it. But Trevor Penning, I need him out there because you're already without Cesar Ruiz, right? You're already going to have Torricelli Simpkins out there starting at right guard. I talked to him today. He's excited not only to start, but to continue to progress, to play in the Superdome, not have to worry about crowd noise, right? Because his first start came in Seattle, about the loudest environment possible. His second extended run came in Buffalo, a pretty raucous environment. So, he's looking forward to not every third down having to just guess when the snap's going. And that's really all you're doing. You're hoping you get it right. And so the Saints will hopefully be able to operate a little cleaner, or at least a little more on time this week than they have been able to the last 2 weeks. But again, hopefully Trevor can get out there. Otherwise, you're talking about maybe Awesome Richards at left guard because Dylan Radins still is not back at practice, dealing with a toe injury. I don't expect him to go this week. Cesar Ruiz already been ruled out, as I mentioned. Then the other guys, Taysom Hill, Foster Moreau, got back to practice this week. Both days have been limited. Don't expect them to play. So that tight end position is still thin. So you really need Juwan to battle through it at least one more week before you could probably get Foster out there for week 6. We'll have to wait and see, but that's my guess, is that Foster gets out there for week 6. We'll have to kind of wait and see on Taysom, who is now being listed as a quarterback. So I hope you enjoyed your fantasy cheat code while you had it, your fantasy football cheat code while you had it, because you ain't going to get that no more. Few other guys downgraded. You had Trey Palmer. He's a DMP. He's been hurt. He's got 2 different injuries. Hasn't played in the game. That's not a great sign. I think I saw when the ankle injury happened. It was last week. He kind of just turned it coming in on a route, and he just kind of like, that's not pretty. But don't expect him to make his debut this week. And frankly, your numbers at the wide receiver position are 100%. So I don't think even if he was healthy, he'd be making his debut this week. And that's okay. Like I think the receivers that you have there are the ones who need to make the impact. And then also Isaac Yiadom, cornerback, dealing with a hamstring injury. He was downgraded to a DMP. Now, if you want to get your hackles up and say, that seems convenient in the sense that I don't think he was going to start this way, and maybe this is a hamstring injury to kind of grease the skids on. Well, he's not getting benched. He's getting replaced because of injury. But I think Quincy Riley was gonna take over either way, and the hamstring injury will just serve to kind of muddy that up a little bit and make you wonder, was he actually getting replaced? Either way, if Ike doesn't go, expect Quincy Riley to be out there, and if Ike doesn't go, expect Rajon Wright to be that next guy up. Rajon has been there. He's been working, and we'll have to see if Ike can go, if he can't go. But I expect Quincy, he's seen his snap count increase each of the last 2 weeks. It's going to keep increasing. He's a good player. He's going to get better. You want him to get the work in, and he's going to be the guy, the long-term guy. So we'll have to see. Devon Godchaux, also a DMP, but that was just a veteran rest day. Don't expect him to miss any time. He also had Justin Reed, safety, upgraded to a full participant. He's dealing with a knee injury. I don't think it was ever anything significant, but anytime you got a guy dealing with a knee injury, you got to look at it. He's going to play, so you're good there. Now, on the other side, there's too many names on here to go through them all. I'll flash them up, but Jackson Dart is on the injury report with a hamstring. He's a full participant. He's going to play. Cam Scadaboo, knee. He's a full participant. He's going to play. Andrew Thomas was added, got a limited practice today, but it was a resting. The guys that you're looking at, Dexter Lawrence, dealing with an illness, but he was a DMP the last 2 days. I don't expect him to miss the game, but anytime you're sick throughout the course of a week and you're not able to get the work in, it's not a great thing for how you're going to perform in the game. He's a great player, so he can probably figure it out, but just something to keep an eye on. You also had Tyrone Tracy, shoulder injury, DMPs to the last 2 days. I don't think he's going to play. So I don't think you're going to have to deal with him. It's going to be more Devin Singletary, a guy the Saints are reasonably familiar with. They faced him out with the Texans. So it's going to be, you're going to get a heavy dose of Mr. Scattaboo, and it's going to be the Saints' job to stop him from running through a wall. You also had defensive back Tyler Nubin. He was limited. Dane Belton was limited with a shoulder. Javon Holland was limited with a neck injury, and also they added a calf injury today. So this secondary, it's got some sketchy pieces in there, right? It's got some guys dealing with injuries that maybe you're going to take advantage of. Maybe you're going to try to get over the top. I don't know. But 26 names listed on the injury report. When you eliminate the 3 returning guys for the Saints who are not technically on the roster, the third being John Ridgway, who was upgraded to a full participant in Thursday's practice, a good sign for him. I don't expect him to be activated this week, but it's a good sign that he's ready when needed. When you take away those 3 names, you're still talking about 20% of these 2 teams' active rosters are currently listed on the injury report. That's a lot. It's the NFL, and we have officially arrived at CVS receipt length injury report season. And the only question is, who's got the depth to overcome injuries? Who's going to have games completely destroyed by injuries? I don't think the Saints are there. I think the Saints are going to be okay. Anytime you've got 4 of your 5 starting offensive linemen, all your wide receivers, your starting quarterback, you're in decent shape. On the defensive side, you got your defensive line intact with the guys who have been playing. So it's at least not a change. At least you're not losing pieces. Caesar, I think he's in good spirits. I don't expect his injury to keep him out that long, but that long is a question of IR. Is he going to be out the 4 to 6 weeks, or are you going to try to get him back a little earlier? He hasn't gone on IR yet, which I think is a good sign, but we'll have to see, because you can wait out this week and still retroactively add him to IR and get this week on the ledger. So this would count towards those 4 weeks, but that's going to be something to watch toward the end of the week. Have seen him moving around. He's not on crutches or anything, so that's a good sign. But we'll have to wait and see. And I have faith in Torricelli Simpkins. He's a young guy. He's going to make mistakes. He's going to get bullied a little bit, but I think he's got a good mentality. I think the Saints really like him. So we'll have to see how that goes. But all right, set a quick break. Let's come back. And I want to get into the sound. Got a couple quotes from the offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, and then we got Drew Brees. My plan is to give you at least one Drew Brees clip every week, because he's always got something. There's a lot of fluff in there, but there's always one good tidbit, at least, that I want to throw you. So we're going to get to that inside Black and Gold. Hit a quick break, and we'll be right back. And we're back on Inside Black and Gold. Jeff Nowak here, getting you ready for Week 5. Saints hosting the Giants at some point in the distant future. I'd like to be able to talk about the Saints again as a competitive, compelling product, and it's just not the case right now. But one win and things will start to feel different. Not that different, but different. Because we'll not have to talk about, 0-10, 0-11, 0-12. We'll not have to talk about, will they go winless? We'll talk about, hey, can you keep it going? Can you build on something? Can you create a culture? Right? And so that's what you're trying to do. That's what also the Giants are trying to do. And it's kind of fascinating when I went back and watched the Jackson Dart game and how he played and kind of compared it to the way the Saints are using Spencer Rattler, because I see it very similarly. I see Brian Daboll telling Jackson Dart to do all the same things the Saints are trying to get Spencer Rattler to do. And it's interesting because, okay, who does it better? Right? But they're both young guys. Yeah, Spencer has a few more starts under his belt, but 10 starts in the NFL at the end of the day is nothing, right? It's not even a full season. So you're effectively talking about 2 rookies in terms of how many games they've played and how they operate and who can avoid the most mistakes, right? That's when you're talking about young players, all about avoiding mistakes. And I asked Brandon Staley today if he sees that, if he sees the way the Giants operated with Jackson Dart in week 4 as similar to how the Saints are operating with Spencer Rattler. And here's what he said.
I see, some similarities. I can see how you would think that. I think that, certainly Spencer's got a full year, of playing under his belt, and he started a bunch of games last year. So, I think that for any new quarterback in the NFL, there's that learning curve, and you want to make them feel comfortable. You want them to play fast and truly be able to, run the show the way that they've probably always done it. So, I think that was a really good game plan that Brian and Mike and that group from New York put in place last week. It gave him a really good chance to be successful. And I think they did the same thing in the preseason. I thought he played fast, he was decisive, and I thought you were able to see the playmaking ability, both with his arms and his legs. And, I know Kellen's doing the same thing with Spencer, and I think that you've seen Spencer play that way through 4 games. He's been able to, show what he can do. And I think that Spencer's done a great job of taking care of the football. And I think that's something that Jackson did a good job of last week, too.
Yeah, and so I thought that was an interesting answer because he kind of started out by trying to say, it's different. But then by the end, he was like, yeah, it's pretty much the same. And that's why, I think the Saints, they're in a good spot this week because they know what that plan is. They know how Jackson Dart's going to try to hit them. They know he's going to step up and try to scramble rather than try to go over the top. They know that they can take advantage of some of those tendencies of a young player because they've been handling a young player, because they know what a young player wants to do. They know Jackson Dart and Spencer Rattler are different. These are different offenses from Brian Daboll's to Kellen Moore's. But at the end of the day, how you handle a young player is kind of universal. And if this was a team that had spent all offseason coaching Derek Carr, they might not have those tendencies and kind of that idea in place the way that they probably will. I think they're going to handle it well. I really do. And we'll have to see how that goes. One other clip I want to get to is, Brandon Staley talked a good bit about Jonas Anker today. And I brought up the interception and the range that Jonas played with and how he got there. And I asked Brandon, okay, so when you're talking about range with the safety, especially on that type of play where you're playing the post safety role, getting all the way to the edge of the field, is that more about athleticism, about recognition, and what's more important? And this is what he said.
Yeah, it's both. Yeah, I think it's a key diagnosed position. Anytime you're in the middle of the defense, key diagnosis is as important as any trait, linebacker, nickel, safety. So he did have that play recognition, and I think he saw Josh trying to look him off, kind of knew that he was getting looked off, and then you saw that early break, and then then he just has the athleticism, the speed to get there faster than most. And what was most important is that he finished it, because there's a lot of guys that can get there and it's an incompletion, but to finish that play, that was a big lift for our team.
Yeah, and I think that combination that Jonas has been able to play with, both in terms of athleticism to go make a play, recognition to understand what's happening. You don't see a lot of young DBs not getting looked off in that situation. This is an MVP quarterback. He understands how to hold a safety with his eyes, but Jonas knew what he was looking at. He knew what was going to happen. He recognized it early. He broke early. And like Brandon said, he finished the play. It wasn't just going out there and knocking it away, which he did 3 other times. He had 3 PBUs, but he took the ball away. And the difference is a broken up pass is a big play. An interception is a game-changing play, right? And you want safeties that can make game-changing plays. It's one of the reasons Tyrann Mathieu had such a long, successful career that he did. Is you go and you look at, he had 30-something, you had 30-some-odd interceptions, you had 10 interceptions with Saints. They came at critical points. There's so many instances where the game is going a certain way, and you just need someone to step up and make a play on the ball and take a ball away. And, he's nicknamed the Honey Badger for a reason. He takes what he wants. And that's the type of thing that I just haven't. And that's how you need a safety to play, especially a free safety. And they're asking Jonas to do a lot of free safety things. And I'm going to be honest, I didn't think he had the free safety range in him. So it's it's been kind of cool to see him develop that. And also, you already know he's a hitter. That's how he'll describe himself to you. If you ask Jonas Sanka what he does well, he'll be like, I like to get downfield, I like to get downhill, and I like to hit people and make them feel it. That's how he sets the tone as a player. And I mean, when you have an all-around package like that and a safety body, I'm excited for him. I really am. I think he's going to be a good player for this team for a long time. And so it's nice to finally be able to talk about a hit in the draft outside of the first 2 rounds. But I think he got one. Guys. But all right, let's move on. A couple more clips. Doug Nussmeier, one thing that is going to be a huge factor in this game is, can you run the ball? Can you continue to run the ball? And I think the success you had against the Bills is going to kind of catapult you forward against the Giants, because you're going to do all the same things. And you're going to add more. You're going to add wrinkles. But you're going to attack this Giants defense basically the same way you attack the Bills. And that's with outside zone runs. It's with kind of that zone read action. The funny thing is, I asked Alvin today, we talked a little about the short motion handoffs into kind of running handoffs. And he asked him, do you like those plays? He said, no. He's like, all it is me running more. I'm tired of running. But it works. And if it works, he's not going to complain about some green grass in front of him. And, I just appreciate the way the Saints have kind of developed their run game. And I mentioned this, and what stood out to me the most is not just the run game, but also the split, the 17-15 touch split between Alvin Kamara and Kendre Miller. Cause I want a timeshare. I have a 30-year-old running back. I want a timeshare. I don't want 25 carries to 5 carries. I want 20 to 15. Anything in between that is a win for me. I don't want it to go the other direction. I don't want 25 and 10. I don't want 30 and 5. I do want 35 carries. I think if the game goes the way that you want it to go, you're trying to get in the range of 35 rushing attempts. And it's how you split up those rushing attempts, right? So Spencer Rattler is going to have a handful, whether that's designed or whether that's a scramble, and the rest are going to be split between Alvin Kamara and Kendre Miller. And I'd like it to be kind of a 60-40 split. And that's what you had. And I asked Doug Nussmeier today, is that the goal? Is that what you're trying to get to? And this is what he said.
Obviously, when guy gets hot a little bit, you might feed him a little bit more, but you like to have balance. And I think the 2 different styles of runners that we have is the thing that's, different. I kind of go back to like in Dallas where we had Zeke and Tony. There were 2 different style of runners, So when you have 2 different style of runners, it creates a different presentation for the defense and a different element when they're on the field.
And I like that comparison. Now, I don't know how Alvin Kamara necessarily compares to Ezekiel Elliott. It might be in reverse. You might be talking about Tony Pollard as the Alvin Kamara and Kendre Miller as the Ezekiel Elliott to some extent. But I do like that comparison because that tandem was really effective for the Cowboys. And then you're always going to kind of call back and point to something that worked. And it wasn't what they did with Saquon. Saquon was the bell cow. And when you have a guy like Saquon in his prime, you're not splitting carries. You're giving the ball to Saquon. You're not taking Saquon off the field any more than you absolutely have to. The Saints aren't in that position, right? They are in a much more similar position to where the Cowboys were with aging Ezekiel Elliott and newcomer Tony Pollard. And if they can get anywhere near the level of dual production that those 2 kind of brought into the game, that's a major win. And so I'm excited about it. I think this is going to be something you can build on. And if you find a way to stack some wins this season, if you find a way to win this week, maybe next week, maybe you take down the Bears, get back close to 500, it's going to be because you lean on the run game. And that makes life way easier. It makes everything easier for Spencer Rattler in the play action game and the zone read keeper game. Like when you look at how the Bills really kind of took control of that game last week, it was because they ran the ball effectively and then they ran the play action and there was no one home. He was able to throw it to the tight end in space. And it was like, he's going to run for a while because everyone went the other way with James Cook. No one even bothered to think, what if he pulls this out and throws it to the tight end? And that's what an effective run game can do for you. And right now, I think the Saints are built to have an effective run game. And that kind of leads me into my next point. And so I've said this before, but if you didn't know, we have Drew Brees on WWL radio every Wednesday at 4:30. He chats with Bobby Hebert for about 20-25 minutes. And they've been really informative interviews. We've been we've a lot of the questions are, I've been helping in the background, kind of coming up with some good questions to ask. and just kind of pointed ideas that we can get to some insight from Drew. And what I found with Drew is you're going to get a lot more details in these answers as a post player than you would have gotten as an active player. And he's not always one, you got to read between the lines with Drew sometimes, but then you just get some really unique details that he's the only one that can give you. And so one of the questions that Drew answered was, when you're facing an elite pass rush, and you can even use the Giants, like hey Drew, when you were facing the Giants in 2012 and they had OCU Manora and Justin Tuck and all these guys, what did you do to them? Like, how do you approach that matchup? And I thought he had a really good answer, so let's go.
Even before training camp, the Giants D-line, an impressive defensive line, Dexter Lawrence, Brian Burns, Kevon Thibodeau, Abdul Carter. As a quarterback, when you know you're going against a group like that, what are some keys to making sure they don't wreck the game? I'd say one thing, run at them. I was like, what, they 30th against the run? The Bills weren't good against the run. They're giving up like 153 yards a game. So when you say, well, we better not be rushing only 18, 20 times a game, just by that, to me, it tells me that they want to rush the pass. It might be maybe a little undisciplined stopping the run. So what's your take on that?
Yeah, look, there's always a strategy, right? And typically the teams that are great rushing the passer, you pound them, and you pound them early so that you wear them down, and it makes it to where those, when you do get to those pass rush downs, you beat them up a little bit before you get to that point. Also, some of these guys they're undersized, they're really quick. Well, you don't want to run away from those guys because they run plays down from the backside. You want to run right at them, right? So there's a strategy. I remember one time too, we used to do all kinds of game planning and analysis based on, we would study opponents like, I remember one time we played J.J. Watt, the Houston Texans, and J.J. Watt, the first 7 plays of every drive, he was so destructive if you allowed him to be. But then after play 7, because he played every single snap and was just 1,000 miles an hour, right, like we could wear him down a little bit, and so that was the time to take shots, right? So like you begin to study the tape, and then just kind of study the data a little bit too, and you're like, okay, now we know how to put together a game plan.
Yeah, and so I think that's kind of fascinating in a few ways. One, yes, absolutely. How do you slow down a pass rush? You run the ball right at them. And I agree, like, you can't run the ball away from a guy, because especially with these Giants defensive ends, first of all, you got 2 of them, so you're going to have to run to one side or the other, so you can't run away from them really, but they're going to chase the play down just as effectively they're going to play it on the front side, so you might as well make them work on the front side. Second, I thought that was kind of a fascinating detail with how they dealt with J.J. Watt. And it's the type of thing that, like, I think it's a really good detail that, we talk about a lot. There's game plans and there's stuff like that. There's so many data points that we just don't know about. Like, there's so many kind of nuanced ideas that go on throughout a game that I'm sure if you went back to that Texans game, the Monday Night Football opener back in, 2018, maybe 2019? I think it was 2019. Yeah, it was 2019, because that was the game before the injury out in LA. I'd be fascinated, and maybe at some point I'll go and look to see all the 7+ play drives and the plays that were called after the 7th play of that drive, because it's so specific, right? Like, I guarantee, and it's kind of a cool detail to think, like, hey, every time the Saints got a drive to 7 plays, they were like, okay, JJ's gassed. Let's go. It's time. Run that play action, run that double move, because we're going to have time because he's tired. And I think that's I don't know if that's a detail that you're going to get with this Saints offense, but it's a good example of the type of stuff that, like, we talk about football very basically in broad strokes terms, because we don't know, or at least I do, because I don't try to make assumptions about stuff I don't know. And that's why when I post stuff on social media, when I post like film clips, I am very cognizant of, like, I'm not posting this unless I'm sure I know what I'm talking about, because you'd be amazed at how frequently I'll, like, take a clip and someone says something and I'll show it to, like, Deuce or whoever, and he'll be like, yeah, he's wrong. Like, that's just not right. But it doesn't matter. It's already viral. So so you could be wrong. As long as it's interesting, people are going to pay attention to it. But there's so much happening within the course of a game that if you don't know what the offense is telling its players to do, if you don't know what a guy's being coached to do, it's really hard to criticize it, right? It's really hard to criticize the defensive end. Like, you'll see clips like, oh, this guy sucked. Like, he's playing contain on that play. His job wasn't get to the quarterback. His job was to make sure he stayed in the pocket. Like that stuff like that happens all the time. And I thought that was a really interesting detail. It's like, oh, why aren't they attacking early in drives? Well, we figured out that if we wait until the 7th play, that's when we can get them. But no, I think Drew's spot on. Like, you want to slow down the Giants pass rush. Run the ball. Don't let them rush the passer. And then they're going to get some, but if you avoid penalties, right? Like if you avoid the false starts, the illegal procedures, which you were able to do in Buffalo, and you can stay ahead of the chains, you can get into 3rd and 5, 3rd and 4, 3rd and 6 or shorter. They're not going to be able to rush the passer because they're going to have to play the run. So, hey, we'll see if they can actually do it. I'm optimistic. I think this is the week the Saints get a win. And I mean, I say it a lot. I grew up a Giants fan. If you're worried, no, I'm not rooting for the Giants. I'm rooting for the Saints because, man, I'm tired of talking about a winless team. Let's end this game with both teams 1-4, and we can go from there. How about that? But all right. Who dat? Goes Saints. Going to hit a quick break and come back with Steve Geller and Ryan Dunleavy from the New York Post to break down what the Saints should expect from the Giants side of the equation. What to expect from the pass rush, from the Cam Scataboos, from the Jackson Darts, and everything in between. Then we'll go ahead and break down X Factors to close out the show. Thanks, as always, for hanging around. We'll be right back. And we are back on Inside Black and Gold, a preview edition, getting ready for Saints 0-4 hosting Giants 1-3, which, the Saints were hoping to be the upset of the week. It was actually the Giants that got the upset that no one saw coming. Well, we're going to talk about it. I'm Jeff Nowak alongside Steve Geller as always, and we're bringing in Ryan Dunleavy, NFL reporter for the New York Post. You can follow him on X at RY Dunleavy. Ryan, thanks so much for joining us. I know it's a busy week for you. You're dealing with the Giants and the Jets. There's a lot going on. So how are things going? How are the winds blowing in New York land, or I should say New Jersey land, really, this time of year?
Yeah, winds blowing with a D or winds blowing, W-I-N-S, because not a lot of wins in New York football here, guys. We got 0-4 Jets. We got the 1-3 Giants. Let's call this the NFL game of the week. 1-3 Giants at 0-4 Saints. I thought this was going to be two winless teams looking for their first win until the Jackson Dart effect last week beat the Chargers.
Yeah, so I mean, let's just get into that because I did catch up on that game. I haven't been able to watch any live Giants games because they've basically played at the same time as the Saints every week. But what is that? Because I watched the game and I'm like, man, they really benefited from some untimely Justin Herbert interceptions. But it did seem like Jackson Dart gets in there. He only throws for 130 yards, but the energy that he brought is not make believe. Like it was there and you could see it. So what is that real? Is that a tangible thing that you can extend, or how do you kind of view that?
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly what it is. I think you nailed it. It's like he plays with a certain moxie. I think you see this. I mean, the Saints are playing young quarterbacks. There's a certain, they don't know what they don't know, and so they're out there running around, and there's a confidence because we're all winners in college, and that rubs off on some of the veterans who have been around the block and know that the NFL is a business. So I think there's some of that. But more than anything, guys, two things. One, the offense changed. With Russell Wilson, it was chuck the ball deep. And that's pretty much all Russell does at this point in his career is throw deep outside the numbers. With Jackson Dart, it was a much more athletic offense, crossers and screens and QB draws and RPOs. So I think that definitely helped. And then they drew it up. This is how Joe Shane, the GM, drew it up. Like, play with a lead and let your defense and your pass rush specifically go to work. You can't do that when you're down 14-0. You're going to get the ball run down your throat. They played with a lead for the final 54 minutes against the Chargers, and it showed because they had, something like 20 quarterback pressures, 12 quarterback hits, and 2 sacks from their top 3 edge guys.
Looking at the offense even more, unfortunately, Malik Neighbors' injury, he's dealing with that knee issue, and we won't see him in this game and for a while, obviously. But we're fans here from him in Louisiana. Just overall, What have you seen him bring to this offense? Whoever's that quarterback, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I mean, he's unbelievable. I mean, I thought by the end of this season, had he stayed healthy, he would have been in the conversation for wide receiver 3 in the NFL. Like, I think everybody thinks it's Jefferson and Chase one way or the other. Also 2 LSU guys. Right. And then I think wide receiver 3 would have been whoever, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Neighbors, whoever you want to put in that conversation. Neighbors would have been right there. And now he's going to miss this rest of this season. You know, then we'll be talking about no OTAs. Then it'll be eased back into practice. It's just ACLs once the season starts is just terrible because it kind of impacts the start of the next season. He's been incredible. He's done everything you could probably. His body control is insane. His route running is insane. His speed is insane. From the moment he stepped on the Giants practice field last year, it was like, whoa, this guy's different. And like, as bad as the Giants have been, they've had some really special players walk through here, whether that's Saquon Barkley or Odell Beckham Jr., another LSU guy. And those guys are just different, right? You just know from the first time you see them practice that they're different. And that's what it was with Malik Neighbors. And to his credit, he's put up a monster rookie year, and he was off to a fast start this year. And that's with, I'm just going to rattle them off because I don't know the number. Daniel Jones, Tommy DeVito, Drew Lock. I'm trying to think. Tim Boyle, and Russell Wilson, and Jackson Dart. So 6 quarterbacks that he's played with, and he was putting up monster numbers through the first 20 games of his career.
Yeah, just not Jameis Winston, who's like the guy that everyone down here is like, oh man. I do think it's a shame that Malik isn't going to play in this game, because I broke up my Odell Beckham Jr. cards behind me, because I will never forget that game. It's 10 years ago. It was 2015. The Giants came down to the Superdome. Neither were good teams, but it was one of the
52 to 49,
games.
Right? Yeah.
52 to 49. Odell Beckham had 3 touchdowns. Dwayne Harris had 2 touchdowns. Shane Vereen had a touchdown for the Giants. The names: Marcus Colston, Brandon Cooks, who's back on the Saints. Do you remember? I'm just curious. We haven't talked a ton about it, but do you remember that game? Were you covering the Giants at that point?
I wasn't. I was actually covering college football, but I was of course, I watched football on Sundays, and I was watching the Giants. Yeah, I remember that game, and that was kind of epitomized 10 years of Giants football. Is like, if the offense plays, then the defense doesn't, and if the defense plays, then the offense doesn't, and that's how you end up as the franchise with the fewest wins in the NFL since 2017. Is like, nothing goes right when the other side goes right. Eli threw for 7 touchdowns, I think, and they lost. Like, that's almost impossible to do,
and no picks.
Or maybe Eli threw for 5 and Brees threw for 7, something like that. It was
Eli 6, Brees 7, 52-49. Brad Wing had the key face mask hold to set up high 4.
Another LSU guy.
There you go, right?
Another LSU guy. But no, I mean, I kind of threw us off track here. I actually didn't realize that the Giants had the fewest wins, but it does make sense. It's also crazy that you can have the fewest wins in the NFL over that span and not pick number one time. And that just shows you how difficult it is to actually get the number 1 overall pick, because the Giants have been like top 5 so many times they've never gotten there. Maybe they do need a lottery, but so just tell me about the Giants offense without Malik Neighbors, because that's kind of where I was trying to go. Is who takes over that mantle? Is it Darius Slayton, who's been around forever and kind of has had a quietly impressive career when you look at the numbers? When you talk about all these, like, he was great as a rookie and he's just been there forever. Jalen Hyatt, a lot of these other guys, like, who steps up with Malik Neighbors down?
Let's be clear. We have no idea what the Giants offense looks like without Malik Neighbors, because the Giants offense is like essentially throw the ball to Malik Neighbors 13 times a game. Right. So like, there's nobody wearing those shoes. No one is taking those shoes. You're going to have to spread it around. Darius Slayton is a good player who, like you said, has been around a while. He led the Giants in receiving 4 of his first 5 years, but never reached 800 yards in any of those years. So good player, good number 2/3. Wan'Dale Robinson is a guy. He had a monster game against the Cowboys in week 2. Something like last year, he had something like 110 targets, but only 700 yards receiving. Made him the second player in NFL history with that many targets, but not 700 yards receiving. He just basically ran 5-yard routes all and got leveled after he caught the ball. they starting to use him a little differently this year. So maybe this is a huge opportunity for him. If you ask me who gets the most targets going forward, it'd probably be Wan'Dale Robinson. And then you mentioned the guy who needs to step up. It's Jalen Hyatt. It's do or die time for him in his career. He is a former third-round pick. He was a Biletnikoff winner at Tennessee. He showed flashes as a rookie with his speed downfield, and he's just done nothing in the last year and a half. He has 8 catches for 62 yards since the start of the 2024 season, and that's without being injured. He just has been a total non-factor, and they're going to need him. He has the talent, the potential, the speed. They're going to need to get him involved to run a 3-receiver offense. I think, quite frankly, guys, there's a chance that they don't run a lot of 3-receiver offense. They could go 2 tight end, 2 receiver.
How much do we have to worry about the Scatterboo effect on Sunday? I figured when he got drafted, Big Blue Nation would definitely welcome this kind of player into their arms.
Yeah, he's exactly who the Giants fan. Go back to the 80s or the 90s. This is who the Giants fan love. They love defense and hard running backs who like want to bulldoze guys. There's all kinds of Scatterboo stories about him as a kid, like putting on a helmet and running into telephone poles and stuff. And that's who he still is as an adult. Like he's made for like Kyle Brandt's whatever.
Angry runs,
angry runs. That's who he is, right? He won that scepter in week 1 and he had -3 rushing yards.
Yeah.
Like that's all you need to know about. He had 25 carries for 70-something yards against the Chargers. It was only 3.2 a carry, but he makes you feel his presence. Like he is a not a big back, but he runs like a big back, if that makes sense. Ideally, the Giants would have him and Tyrone Tracy in a shared backfield, and Tracy would be more of the explosive speed guy, but he's dealing with the shoulder, so I think you're going to see plenty of Scatterboo.
And he's got the end zone backflips, which, I have a deep cut for you, and this is probably before you started covering the Giants, but David Wilson, Virginia Tech,
I remember.
he used to do backflips. He had like the most incredible rookie season after fumbling like his first touch and crying on the sideline. And then he went nuts, and then he had like a neck injury, and he ended up being an Olympian long jumper. Anyway, it reminded me of that. I was like, stop doing backflips. That's a bad thing. Anyway, but let's just switch over to the defensive side. And, a lot of the focus is going to be on the pass rush, and I do want to ask you about that, but this is going to be the second week that the Saints face a team that is statistically one of the worst run defenses in the NFL. And the question at this point in the season is that a mirage, or is that really what this team is and something they can attack? And the stat I see here from Next Gen Stats, 196 yards over expected allowed. They're number 1 in the NFL, or number 32 in the NFL, I should say it. Yards over expected allowed in total and per attempt. They've allowed 2.1 yards more than is expected, which that's a subjective stat. What is expected? What is the result of a play supposed to be versus what happened? But what is that? Like, what is it? Is it the pass rush wanting to get after it? Are teams attacking it and kind of wearing them down? Like, why has this team been so poor at stopping the run to this point?
Yeah, so they're obviously built on their edge rushers. None of them are terrific run defenders. Dexter Lawrence is a monster in the middle. They don't have a guy who plays next to him, and their best guy who plays next to him, Raheem Nunez-Roches, has been out for the last couple weeks. But this isn't a 4 games problem, guys. They were terrible against the run last year, too. They tried to address that. They brought in Roy Robertson-Harris, an NFL veteran, Darius Alexander, a third-round rookie, who was a healthy scratch week 1, but has made pretty quick strides here and actually started last week. They're hoping he can be the guy next to Dexter Lawrence. But no, that's a weakness of the team. It is not in any way a mirage. It's a 2-year weakness of this defense is stopping the run. If you ask me why the Chargers lost the game last week, I would say it's partly because Greg Roman, who's, we know a run-oriented offensive coordinator, abandoned the run. I think Omarion Hampton had 12 carries for 120-something yards or whatever. And how does he only end up with 12 carries? So, no, I would think that if you want to beat the Giants, that's a good way to do it. It neutralizes the pass rush. And you want to talk about Darius Slayton being around forever. I mean, when hearing Brian Daboll gush about Alvin Kamara yesterday, it made me feel like it was, 2017 all over again.
Looking at that defense, another big piece they invested in the third overall pick. We talked about Jackson Dart first. Of course, it's offense, but on the defensive side, third overall, you take a guy like Abdul Carter. What have been the early returns on his presence?
Yeah, again, a difference maker right away. I don't think he has a sack yet, but he had eight quarterback pressures and 5 quarterback hits against the Saints. So the sacks are coming. They can use him a little bit all over the field. His best position is edge rusher, but he can play stand up inside linebacker. He did that at Penn State. He's done that a little now because the Giants are missing Micah McFadden, who's one of their starting linebackers. He can actually play three tech defensive tackle on third downs, which is a flashback to the Giants' heyday with Justin Tuck doing that, moving from the edge to inside and what the Giants used to call their NASCAR package. So they have some flexibility with Carter, and he's been a guy you feel his presence even when he doesn't get sacks.
Yeah, that's what I think a lot of people forget is the Giants have invented the NASCAR package back. Yes. I think it was the 2012 team with Justin Tuck and Umanura. But so, and just to follow up on that, obviously when you have 3 pass rushers with the caliber of Kayvon Thibodeau, Brian Burns, Abdul Carter, the struggle is, okay, we got to get all these guys on the field. It's not a situation where you can just plop 2 guys there. So is that like, how often are you going to see in these games and in these against this defense, all 3 of those guys? And is it Abdul Carter that shifts inside, or do they kind of take turns at that? Like, how do they handle that?
Yeah, they kind of take turns. It's mostly Brian Burns and Abdul Carter. It's not a lot of Kayvon Thibodeau on the outside. He's more on the edge, but Burns can do it too. And Burns is having if the Giants are a better team, Burns would be having a defensive player of the year caliber season. I mean, he's just been all over the field. He does have the sacks. He might have 5 or 6 actually. He does have the sacks and the pressures, and you see him chasing guys downfield 15 yards. He's been an total force for the Giants, worth being the highest paid guy on the team, which I wouldn't have said last year after they traded for him. So he's taken his game to another level. And yeah, I think you will see all 3 guys on the field at the same time. Like, the Giants don't have a ton of talent. So it's like those 3 guys are certainly 3 of your best 11. So you have to find ways to get them all on the field together. I think last game, Burns played 51 snaps, Thibodeau played 49, and Carter played 46 out of a possible 63. So they're basically all above 75%. So you'll see them on the field together plenty.
And do you think that kind of plays in? You mentioned this with the pass rushers, because it's tough to get 3 pass rushers on the field when it's not a pass rush snap. Does some of it feel like, hey, we're bad against the run because we're trying to shoehorn these 3 pass rushers onto the field when they're not our best run defenders? Like, how do you see that?
To a degree, yes. But again, I think they were bad against the run last year before Abdul Carter showed up, and they only had, the 2 edge rushers. So I think part of that is just they don't have the interior players. So, and Micah McFadden was one of their top run defenders as an inside linebacker, and he's out. So
curious how one of our former guys in Paulson Adebo's doing in New York. Always loved his game, but definitely tended to be a little handsy, getting a lot of penalties. How's he doing this year?
He's gotten off to a roller coaster start. He was awesome week one, shadowing Terry McLaurin, who had been a Giants killer. Right. He was awesome in that game. Shadowed him across the field, which I don't think he did a lot of in New Orleans. I think he was always on the left side. He showed he could travel. That was impressive. He had a difficult week 2 against George Pickens, but as we saw on Sunday Night Football last week, George Pickens might be better than anybody realized as he torched Green Bay. So not going to kill Adebo for that. Good again last week. Doesn't have a pick yet, and one of the reasons they brought him here is because he gets his hands on the ball. And the Giants set an NFL record last year with 10 straight games without an interception. 10 straight games without a takeaway, actually. So they needed that. He hasn't quite done that, but he hasn't been a penalty machine either. I'd say he's been good so far. Like, not wow, but not a problem, just steady.
Right.
He also had a real nasty injury. So, I imagine coming back from that and playing, he broke his femur. Like, that's not a fun
what I would say about that is I give the Giants credit. They were They signed him to a free agent deal, a pretty significant free agent deal. I was talking to Adebo. I get the feeling that maybe some teams were a little more hesitant to commit to him after that injury, and the Giants felt like he would recover well, and he hasn't so much as missed a practice since the spring. So he's come back from that pretty well.
Yeah, that's great to hear. Paulson was a good dude. I was disappointed they didn't bring him back, but at the same time, it was like, okay, you're going to have to invest a lot at this position, and you got a guy coming off this major injury. So I understand why they let him walk and they get a comp pick ideally for him. So we'll see how that goes. But my last question, okay, the Giants, it's funny because this is one of the more interesting games of the week, even though they're a 1-3 team and an 0-4 team, just because the competition level is right there. So it's basically a pick 'em game. My question is, I'll frame it like this. The Giants win this game what happens for the Giants to win this game?
If the defense is dominant again. That's how they're built. That's what they want to do. If they get takeaways, if they harass a young quarterback, I think Spencer Rattler is like 0-10. So right. So like if they make him play, if they force him into bad decisions and turnovers and sacks, and the Saints are in, second and third and long, if the defense is dominating this game, the Giants will win the game, because I don't see Jackson Dart making a lot of mistakes. I don't see him making a lot of huge plays, especially without Neighbors. So the Giants are looking to win this game in the neighborhood of, 20-10, 17-10, something like that.
So that's right up the alley of the games we tend to tend to playing.
Right. And it's funny because there's a lot more excitement around Jackson Dart, but I watch these two guys play in Rattler and Dart, and they're playing very similarly in that, the coaches are like, all right, we're going to try to win this game. Just don't lose us this game, and we'll see if we can get it done. And I feel like it's similar. Like Dart has a way higher ceiling and you're hopeful for more. But like the games you're going to watch, I think are going to be similar. But Ryan Dunleavy, NFL reporter for the New York Post. You can follow him on Twitter at RY. That's Rye Dunleavy. Thanks so much for the time, man. Really good stuff. Appreciate the insight.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Cheers, Ryan. Thank you, man.
Thanks again to Ryan for coming on. Really good information. And yeah, I think he kind of hit it with this game. Like, I don't think even Giants fans and reporters and analysts know exactly how the Giants are going to try to replace Malik Neighbors. Like he said, their offense has been Malik Neighbors. Like the numbers he put up as a rookie, a lot of that was due to the fact that they just kept throwing him the ball regardless of the situation, and he was catching it more often than not. It was kind of like Devontae Adams with Derek Carr. It was like, you're down there and I'm going to throw you the ball because you're my dude. But that doesn't mean the offense is good. And so like, Wan'Dale Robinson is the guy that I didn't mention him. I should have. Like I was trying to remember there was one guy, like he's going to be catching balls at the line of scrimmage constantly. I wouldn't be surprised if he has like 12 catches in this game. He's going to have like a Chris Olave type game where it was like 10 catches for 57 yards. Like that's Wan'Dale Robinson. Like he is going to be that guy. But no, I mean, this matchup should work for the Saints. Like this should be a winnable matchup for the Saints, just based on what you're talking about. And and Ryan said this, like the Giants want to play with a lead. Like the reason the Giants beat the Chargers is not because Jackson Dart played incredibly. He played fine for a rookie. He didn't turn the ball over. He was a good player. But it was because they got two drives that started inside the Chargers 10-yard line. You know what? You know how the Bills game would have gone a lot differently last week if Pete Werner catches that interception and the Saints have a drive that starts inside the Bills 10-yard line, right? Like those types of plays are how you win a game for your quarterback who's playing complementarily.
Right.
And the Saints haven't made those plays. The Giants made those plays last week and they beat a team they shouldn't have beat. Right.
That's how you do it. Right.
Saints can't give them that. But no, I what is your kind of feeling going into this matchup?
Yeah. The fact that you have two teams that are pretty much at the same level, except the Saints haven't turned to their rookie quarterback yet. You see the rushing numbers. We talked about it. And I just feel, give me that heavy dose of Kamara, Kendre combined with Rattler's scramble ability, and I think you should be fine. And obviously, the almighty don't turn the ball over. Don't give them a short field.
Yeah, if the Saints play the game they played against the Bills, I think they win.
Agreed.
You just like the Bills' offense was just too good. You couldn't keep giving them chances. You had to put up 30, and the Saints weren't going to put up 30.
That third quarter drive, Josh Allen and that offense just felt like, all right, let's quit messing around and get down the field for a touchdown here. And they did.
Feel that way. It did.
11 yards, 15 yards, 12. It was just chunk. And it was touchdown.
It did. It was like, okay, we'll put them to bed now. We let them have their fun.
Yeah. All right. Let's quit fooling around, guys.
And here's the thing: you can win. If you're the Saints, you can still win that game because the Bills let you win it, basically, because they kind of were on cruise control. But and that's kind of the thing. Like when you're the better team, you want to put them down early, like the Seahawks did. You let a team hang around, build confidence, and then suddenly that's how upsets happen. That's not going to be the case in this game. Like I think this is going to be the most competitive game in terms of who's the better team. Like week 1, the Cardinals are the better team. Week 2, the 49ers, independent of the quarterback, were the better team. Now it's the question because I don't have Nick Bosa. But now, like, this is a game that I think the Saints could argue that we're the better team. We have the better quarterback, at least in terms of how you expect a guy to play at this point in his career. So we'll see.
Dart's got
Jackson
that
Dart's going to
swag
run
factor
around.
of having the W, though.
That's true. But, like, hey, I remember the kids are going to forget this, but I remember when Tommy DeVito was a thing.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember he was coming into the Superdome after 3 straight wins as the backup, and everyone's like, man, Tommy DeVito might be the real deal. And he arrived at the Superdome, and they just laid waste to that entire concept. Like, Tommy DeVito was a budding star. Like, and the people, he was a thing. There was
an agent too was in the stands and making headlines too because he dressed like a typical paisan you thought would in the stands.
Like Tommy Cutlets was a revelation until the Saints got a hold of him in a season where the Saints weren't that good.
Yes.
And Brian Brzee like took away his signature celebration and he was never the same. So
yeah, the Saints definitely took away DeVito's Linsanity.
Yes, it was a Jeremy Lin type run, and it's a little different because Jeremy Lin was putting up legit numbers. Tommy DeVito was just surviving, but in a way that you didn't expect for Tommy DeVito. And he was just like quintessential New York,
Right.
So I don't know. Like I think the hype around Jackson Dart is going to last until he has one rough game, and then everyone's going to be like, oh, well, he's just a rookie, just like everybody else. Because you look back and you see the Giants beat the Chargers, and I think a lot of people are going to be like, well, Jackson Dart must have played out of his mind good. And he was fine. But again, like I said to Ryan, he's playing just like Spencer Rattler is playing. Like his big plays were with his legs. His big plays were not turning the ball over, right? Like that's how he won that game for them.
Yeah, you let Dart have a rough patch. And then people are going to be talking about, oh, I can't believe the Giants overdrafted this guy. He shouldn't have been a first rounder.
I don't think that you'd make that. I don't think that happens as a rookie. I think winning one game in this context for him is a big deal. But what ends up happening, and this is Daniel Jones. Like I remember vividly, Daniel Jones, his first game in the NFL, he came back from an 18-point deficit against the Jameis Winston Buccaneers. And everyone was like, holy crap, he's the truth. And then reality set in and you're like, it's just a rookie quarterback who has a lot to learn at the NFL level. And now that teams kind of get the book on you and they realize you just can't see the pressure, we're going to send pressure from your blind side and just literally have Jamal Adams take the ball out of your hands in the pocket. Happened twice to him that season. I know I'm talking way too much about the Giants, but I'll never forget watching Daniel Jones multiple times in the same season have a rusher come and not tackle him. Pluck the ball out of his hands as he stood in the pocket, unaware that they existed. Never seen anything like it. And it happened twice. The other guy was Chandler Jones. And that's the type of thing as a rookie. It's like, do you know what to do if we even send this blitz here? Probably not. You didn't see that in college. Anyway, so I like the Saints' chances.
I'd like to see the Saints send the blitz. That'd be nice.
I think you're a lot more comfortable sending blitzes now that you know Jonas Sanker is there and can play. Seriously, because they left him on an island a lot in that game. So I like the idea that they can pressure Jackson Dart. But at the same time, like he's the type of quarterback that's looking to run. So you got to be careful. Like he doesn't want to stand in the pocket forever. He wants to run. So there is some level of that. Huh?
Dart's going to dart.
He's looking to dart. He doesn't want to throw darts. He's looking to be the dart. Anyway, he is the dart. But all right, let's wrap up this segment. Come back, break down a few X factors. We already kind of teased them a little bit in the interview with Ryan, but a lot to go through. It's going to be very similar to last week because the numbers in these teams are very similar, at least on the defensive side of the ball. So we'll break it down again. I'm Jeff Nowak. He is Steve Geller. We're getting ready for Saints 0-4, hosting the Giants 1-3. Is it finally Spencer Rattler wins a game time? I hope so. But we'll get into it. Stick around. And we are back on Inside Black and Gold. Jeff Nowak here alongside Mr. Steve Geller. Every few episodes, we want to throw in the Price is Right, come on down. We should do a Price is Right segment at some point and find a way to work that in because I do like my Price is Right voice. But no, we're getting ready for Saints Giants. There's no game show themes to work in here, but I do need to know. Okay, let's do X Factors. We do X Factors every week. We're going to do it again. So let's just start on the offensive side of the ball for the Saints. What to you is the X factor for the Saints offense to win this game? And finally, we can talk about X factors in the context of winning a game, not just competing in a game. But let's hear it.
Like you said, we kind of teased it last segment when we were breaking down the Giants. But the fact that this defense of the G-men allowing 153 yards per game on the ground, the Saints have to attack that. We saw, Kamara and Kendra Miller have a lot of success last week in Buffalo. You combine that with Spencer Rattler's scramble ability, and I think you could have a heck of a nice day, control the clock, hold on to this damn ball and get a win in the Dome in front of the home crowd, just dominate that time of possession too, keeping, we're not worried about the offense being led by, oh my God, Jackson Dart going down the field methodically, but just controlling this game entirely from the get and being able to run it down their throat would be quite a thing to see. And I think you can exploit that. We've seen the Giants have troubles with it.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm just going to call back here to the clip I played in the first segment of Drew Brees talking about, hey, when they played J.J. Watt, what did they do? They were like, hey, we got into a 7-play drive. Now we can start attacking them. And I think that's what you do with the Giants, right? When you have those pass rushers, you just make them work early in downs, early in drives, right? And one thing that's been clear watching the Giants play is like their big runs surrendered a lot of times come to the edges of the field because these guys, especially have to play action, or especially if you're playing from under center and they're trying to get upfield, you can catch them, right? Like you can catch them out of position and beat them to the edge of the field. Omarion Hampton is not a fast dude, but he was able to get to the edge several times. And that's where the Saints, when you look at how they really hit the Bills, they hit them to the edges of the field. They got these kind of short motion handoffs where, they forced the edge rusher, which most of the time was Joey Bosa, to have to make a tough decision. And you're able to get Alvin Kamara the ball basically on the run. And both times they ran that, there was like a 15-yard run because Bosa got sucked inside. And the second he doesn't, he stays outside to handle that. Spencer keeps it and hits the hole and picks up 10 yards. So like those are the type of plays that when you have an overzealous edge rusher, you got to just press them because, you can't trust that we're going to run away from that guy because he's going to chase it down from the backside. Like you're almost better off going at him. But no, like you mentioned it, the numbers, 153 yards per game allowed on the ground. That's fourth in the NFL or 28th in the NFL. I never know which side
fourth
to go
worst.
from. The fourth most rushing yards per game allowed in the NFL. Plays at 10 plus yards, so 18. That's fourth most in the NFL. The Bills are 26. The Saints had 8 runs of 10 plus yards last week.
I'm surprised we haven't seen contributing in offense at all. Velus Jones Jr., maybe we get a taste of him this week.
Yeah, I just don't think you needed him because, you're trying to incorporate Alvin and Kendre. And
right.
That's where I've been pleased is that they've done both. If it was all Alvin and then like just a spattering of Kendre, I would be frustrated. The way they broke those two up and kind of had their touches very similar, I thought was conducive to effective run game play because against the 49ers, I felt like Alvin wore down toward the end of that game. And the Seahawks game was just kind of weird, but like, I don't want to overload Alvin. I want to get him the ball in premium situations. And if the consequence of that is running Kendre into the wall, I'd much rather have the young guy handle that part of the equation. But rushing yards allowed over expected is a fascinating stat. We got into it, but it's 2.1 yards per attempt over expected. So they're missing tackles. They're taking bad angles. This is not a fundamentally sound defense. And the Saints, I think, are developing into a fundamentally sound offense. Like that's the impressive thing that happened in Buffalo. There's a lot of things you look at and you're like, why am I bullish on this offense coming out of Buffalo in a way I wasn't coming out of Seattle? And because if you're a team that can just execute what you're told to do, you're going to win games. Like, that's what the Saints were under Sean Payton, that they got better throughout the course of the season because they were able to fine tune and get things right while other teams were kind of falling off. And that's why later in the season, when you look at the Drew Brees, Sean Payton era, it was like you got to like week 15 and you would play the Panthers and you would just take the wheels off. Like you would just beat the bricks off, and because you just executed them to death and you ran your stuff and you ran it right and they couldn't keep up with it. And that's what I want to see from the Saints. And you saw that in Buffalo, right? You didn't have the procedural penalties. You didn't beat yourself. You beat them. And there were examples in that game. You know, one thing that the Bills did repeatedly in that game was run like motion blitzes, right? So the Saints ran a ton of motion. And what the Bills did was they would counter it by sending Cole Bishop on a blitz. The second Alvin went out and motioned out, they knew that the snap was coming because the Saints like to time up their snap counts with the motion. So he just used that as a blitz trigger. And the first couple times they didn't handle it particularly well. Kelvin Banks, you know, would get caught outside trying to handle Joey Bosa, and then Cole would just come in scot-free and blow up a play. Well, later in the game, they countered it by just getting that swing pass out to Kendre Miller on a big drive on the drive that ended with the miss to Cooks in the end zone, which is a critical drive for them. They had a chance to go ahead. And so like, those are the type of things that like this offense has a plan and they're executing their plan and they're doing it the right way. They're not missing opportunities in the run game as much as they are missing opportunities in the pass game. So I agree with you. And I don't really have an X factor here other than continue to do what you've been doing. Like, it's easy to look at every matchup and say, how are we going to change? How are we going to do this? I think you can beat the Giants exactly like you tried to attack the Bills. I do. And the issue is going to be they've scouted it a little bit. The Giants are going to be more aware of that plan. But I don't think they have the run game defense, the rushing defense to stop you if you do it the right way. And you're going to come home. You're going to be in a friendly environment. You're going to be able to operate with a cadence rather than the silent count on every third down. And so I hope that's the case. I hope the X factor is, can you continue to execute as efficiently and as fundamentally as you did against the Bills? Because I think if you can do that and you can control the game that way, the Giants aren't winning this game.
Yeah, you look at it, there's nothing about that offense that's scaring you about lighting up the scoreboard, whereas you had Josh Allen and James Cook, playing at the top of their level and having to try and defend that. The Giants are a hurting squad right now, have a rookie coming in hostile territory. So you have to set the tone and control things in this game. And I think, that's every game though.
Yeah. And the real X factor is you can't turn the ball over on offense. We talked about this, but and that's why, we can talk about, hey, Spencer, I want him to be more aggressive. I want to do that. I don't want him to be more aggressive in this game. I want him to execute the offense correctly and not turn the ball over, because I think the way the Giants win this game is by getting ahead early and forcing you to get in a drop back passing game, forcing you to abandon the run and allowing that pass rush and allowing that NASCAR package to impact the game. Because that's what happened to the Chargers. They turned the ball over. They allowed the Giants to get out to a lead. I think they were out 10-0. And so Justin Herbert was just running for his life all game. And that's a good offense. That's a good quarterback. But you get in those situations against a pass rush like that. And that's why you build that pass rush. The issue for the Giants has not been rushing the passer. It's been getting into situations to rush the passer. And once they did,
more than 4.7 yards a pass, though.
Spencer?
Yeah.
See, I don't think you don't. That's not this matchup. There are matchups that I need Spencer to be more aggressive in. That's not this matchup, because if you're averaging 4.7 yards of completion, as long as you're completing the pass, you're getting a first down. Like, this game is about first downs. This game is about staying ahead of the chains and keeping that NASCAR package off the field. The Chargers weren't able to do that, and part of that's because they were trailing the entire game. So I'd love to see the Saints play with a lead, because I think they've had the lead for like 90 seconds this season.
Yeah, I hear you on there's no real stress on having to open up the passing game against this Giants squad.
Yeah, and Paulson Adebo would like nothing more than to get his first interception of the season against the Saints. I can't allow that to happen. I can't do it. Now, I do need Spencer to identify when he, one of the things Spencer hasn't identified well enough, in my opinion, is you have a defense that's showing a middle open look, right? And then they roll at the snap into a middle closed look. And so what does that mean? It means you have a safety. So a middle open look is you have two safeties who are playing the boundaries or on the landmarks, which is usually the numbers, right? Inside or outside the numbers. And so you can run routes to the middle of the field and have a chance at completing them. A middle closed look is like a cover 3 or a cover 1 where there's a safety standing in the middle of the field. You have a post safety. So those, post routes aren't going to work because there's a guy standing right there. But what a lot of teams will do is they'll bluff a cover 2 look or they'll bluff a cover 1 look and then roll into something at the snap. And when a team is showing cover 2 and rolls into a cover 1 and you have Rashid Shaheed on the boundary, that's the green light to throw that ball. It's why Josh Allen tried to throw it to Keon Coleman. The ball got intercepted and that's why Jonas Sanker, when you hear Kellen Moore say he had made an incredible play, that's why, because that's a ball you should throw in one-on-one coverage on the boundary if you trust your receiver, because that post safety shouldn't be able to get there. And so that's what I have seen Spencer not identify, in my opinion, because there's been multiple times that you've had Rashid Shaheed with his arm up, like guy, throw me the ball, and Spencer scrambles. and I think they're okay with that. The coaching staff is okay with that, but that's to me what separates a effective quarterback from a winning quarterback, because those are the winning quarterback plays that you make those, and suddenly the defense is like, well, we can't do that again. And that limits their game plan. It gives you confidence on offense. And, a lot of times you could score on that play because Rashid's going to beat that guy. He's going to toast that guy. Anyway, let's shift over to the defense. What is your biggest X factor for the Saints on the defensive side of the ball, knowing you're going against a rookie quarterback and you're knowing you're going against an offense with a rookie running back? As good as he's been, he's a rookie in Cam Scadaboo, and a wide receiver core without wide receiver 1.
Yeah, I'm not worried about the receiving core at all. We went through the guys that they do have. So I'm focused more on what Dart can do with his scramble ability, along with, I guess you'd say, the combo of Scadaboo and Tyrone Tracy, and I guess tackling probably the X factor in this game. Please don't let those yards after contact, pile up, because last game against Buffalo, it just seemed everybody, no matter who was carrying the ball for them, just was getting that extra yardage and just putting a dent into you.
What frustrated me the most against Buffalo was that the Saints devoted extra bodies in the run game and still didn't stop it.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of that is, hey, we got to account for Josh Allen at all times. So you can't be as aggressive going after James Cook in the run game. James Cook is really good. Going into that game, I was kind of on the fence, is James Cook really good, or is he a product of that system? You go back and you watch the tape. Yeah. James Cook is really freaking good, man. He doesn't do anything that blows you away. He's kind of like Alvin. I compare him very favorably to a young Alvin Kamara, because he's always on balance. He's never out over his skis, right? He always has that extra gear to hit when he's trying to cut back. And it's a lot of times guys just go full speed and they just can't adjust. James is playing with his eyes,
right? Not
just his feet. And that's what makes a good running back. Can Cam Scadaboo do that as a rookie? I think Cam is just trying to run through walls at all times. And here's the
fire
thing.
Hydrant just coming at you.
When that works, doesn't matter if you're playing it right. You got to make that tackle. And the Saints, I think Kellen Moore said the Saints missed 13 tackles in that game. The most egregious was the one on Khalil Shakir. Demario Davis got to make that tackle 10 times out of 10. But there was a lot of missed tackles in the trenches too. A lot of the James Cook runs, he had plus 12, plus 13, plus 14, plus 15. It was after first contact. It wasn't just a perfectly blocked run that he just got out into space. It was, this guy fell off him. And there's going to be missed tackles. The Bills had a ton of missed tackles. But if you want to be a consistent defense and give your offense the best possible chance to win, you've got to limit those runs to what they are, which is a 7-yard run that ends in a tackle, or a 5-yard run that ends in a tackle, not a 5-yard run that ends plus 14 because you missed. And that's where I need Pete Werner to step up. I haven't seen Pete Werner make nearly enough tackles for a guy that should be playing free in this defense to fill gaps and to get upfield. I need Pete Werner to play better. He's my X factor, because I think Pete Werner is a very, very, very talented player. And I there's like people are down on Pete Werner now. I think he just needs to kind of get his shit together because he's in position a lot of time.
He's definitely in the fans'
doghouse.
doghouse.
Intercept that ball, right? He's in position to make a tackle, he's just not making it. And that's if the Saints can get Pete Werner to play more effectively, I think everything tightens up in this defense. But no, I mean, you got to stop the run because Jackson Dart has to be the guy who beats me in this game. And I don't know if you play with a shell. I know I'm rambling here. I apologize for that. But like, I'm kind of conflicted on. Well, would you rather see the Saints play shell and say, "All right, Jackson, let's see if you can beat us underneath," just like teams are trying to do with Spencer Rattler, or do you play aggressive in the run game, shut that down, and say, "All right, Jackson, let's see if you can go over the top"? Like, what would you do?
I would try to force him to chuck it. Yeah, so I'm going with option 2 and just stop focusing everything on stopping their run.
Yeah, if they didn't have Jalen Hyatt, and that wasn't the one thing Jalen Hyatt was good at, I would feel differently about it probably, because like their game plan has to change without Malik Neighbors. You don't have that guy who's going to create separation, but you do have two guys in Darius Slayton and Jalen Hyatt who are like legit 4-3, if not 4-2 guys. Like that's the type of speed they have, and that might be their best offense. Is pound the ball, play action over the top.
Right.
So I don't know. I think this is a shell game. And not a shell game in the sense that you will often hear shell game, but like a shell game in the sense that you're going to play a lot of shell. And as much as I want to be aggressive in the run game, I think it just has to be like the guys up front have to make those tackles.
Well, that's what's scary. I feel like, I mean, the Seattle game's a whole lot different, but the last two games have been rough with that.
Tackling?
Yeah, tackling and stopping the run. Saying yards after contact.
Yeah, and I think Josh Allen put so much pressure on you that you're like focusing on James Cook is impossible, right? You have to play James Cook as you play Josh Allen. And in this game, I think you can just play Cam Scatterbo and say, he's not doing anything spectacular. He's going to try to run through my face, and I have to be loaded up for that every time, every snap, because he's going to be loaded up for that every snap. And he's going to get you a few times. You just got to be consistent, right? You got to be technically, fundamentally sound. I don't know. I feel confident in this game. Like, I've watched the Saints play the Giants several times since I've been down here, which is a decade, right? And they have their number every time, it seems like. Like, there's certain teams that you just beat. And other than that one crazy game in the Superdome where they had that 10-point fourth quarter comeback, like, they still got dominated in that game. They just had a crazy comeback. Like, the last team the Saints beat in a regular season game?
Yeah. Good old Giants in MetLife.
It was the Giants. And that was a close game. I think this game's going to be an ugly one like that. I think it's going to be kind of a rock fight, as they put it.
The offense from what we saw being able to move the ball on the ground against Buffalo gives me some hope, but I need to see more of the finish. They're just not getting into the end zone often enough, and that's been the case though since training camp.
Yeah, I think the Saints are going to benefit from the Giants winning a game last week. In that, like, there's an inevitable like sigh of relief when you get that 0 off the standings line, and the Saints are not there. The Saints are still in like, we got to go win a freaking game, man. And here's the thing: the schedule sets up for you right now that you could get, if you want to save this season. And yes, I know everyone's kind of quitting on the season and talking about the number 1 overall pick, whatever. If you want to save this season and make this into something where you actually start talking about the playoffs in week 8 because you're 3-5, you got to win this week, right?
Yeah.
You got to beat the 1-3 Giants. You got to do it at home. You got to protect your house and get something positive going. Otherwise, the story of the second half of this season is going to be, okay, what's Tyler Shuck got to offer? It's not going to be, hey, maybe we have a chance to surprise some people. It's going to be what's going on for next year.
I feel like that's a lot of fans talk already. It's like, why isn't Shuck in?
Right. And here's the thing. I get it. But that's because these are the games. It's like, if you can win these games, maybe get to 2-4, suddenly you're like, hey, we can get on a winning streak. We can figure some stuff out. Maybe Spencer gets on a roll. That's what's ahead of you. And you can either deliver on that or you can not deliver on that, which, you could argue that the best case scenario for the Saints in the long run is not delivering on that, because then you'll have a higher draft pick and whatever. I think learning how to win, and Mark Schlereth kind of talked about this when he came on with us this week, is like, I view learning how to win as much more valuable than getting the 3 instead of the 5 in the draft. Because at the end of the day, until you learn how to win, you're just a losing team with a higher draft pick. And that higher draft pick isn't going to teach you how to win.
Man, like you mentioned, the last time that we've talked about a win, Jeff, though, was December last year.
And the Saints,
we didn't even get one in the preseason.
Yeah, the Saints are the best at winning games and having it be about something else. And like they blew out the Falcons, and everyone's talking about Jameis Winston and the victory formation touchdown. They beat the Giants, and everyone's talking about Derek Carr trying to go full Superman and ending his career with the Saints fans who hated Derek Carr should be looking at that game and saying thank you for that wild decision to try to Superman leap. But no, that's where we are. Anything else you want to add before we close this thing out?
Just the fact that, like you mentioned, you hate to put a title of must-win game, but for, I think, the players, the fans, the coaching, and especially Spencer Rattler, this is a must-win this week against a team coming to your building, and you have more talent than, if not, are on the same level.
Yeah. I also want to see a big bounce back game for Chris Olave. Because Juwan Johnson's dealing with that ankle injury. I don't know what you're going to get from him. Like, and Chris just needs to prove something. Like, he's got to go out there and get
what's options at tight end with no Juwan?
Yeah, that's a whole different, I don't want to even get into it. It's too late in the show. It's a mess. But no, Chris needs to have a game. We need Chris to have a Chris Olave is good game. I put the card up there.
I'm just still concerned. I talked about it last time. There's just something off with him and Spencer, the connection overall. And yeah,
I thought they built.
Sometimes it's a drop, sometimes it's behind, but they're just not together on the same page.
I did think that the second half they built something. Like they started to get some juice going. Right, there was a couple really nice receptions by Chris's game was in the second half. Like, he had a couple contested catches. He had the touchdown. Like, hopefully that. Like, it can be that sometimes. It can be like, just like everything's kind of battling it. Like, you're not getting things right. And then suddenly it clicks and you're like, all right, let's build on it. We saw that with the first year with Derek and Chris, and they really kind of built that connection as the season went on. He finished strong. So that's my hope is
Olave burning the Debo. I'm all for it.
Yeah. And you're going to have a guy that it's going to, like you've played against him so many times. Like, you should know what he does well. And he'll have the same thing. But I think Chris Olave is a better player than Paulson Adebo from a talent perspective. And he should be able to beat him. Beat him!
Please.
Anyway. Who dat? Go Saints. Beat the Giants. And yes, I'm rooting for the Saints. I don't know. I know people, I've talked about the Giants a lot. I'm not rooting for the Giants. Don't worry. I want the Saints to win because the Saints winning makes my life easier. That's the reason.
Yeah, it's not like you're doing a Giants podcast in your spare time going, whoa, we got the victory in New Orleans.
I do, but I have like a face app that changes my face so no one knows it's me. It's the wild times we live in.
I understand totally, because I'm with you as an Eagles fan. Everyone's like, oh, you must be rooting for Philly. I'm like, my life is better when the Saints win.
Yeah. Give me the Saints. Give me the win. Give me the win, baby. 1-4. Spencer Rattler. He needs to win a game. Let's not tie Troy Aikman. Let's not do it.
City needs a win. Please.
It does. It does. I need something to talk about. Like, I need to stop being excited when the Saints play a close game.
And asking the same questions to coach about, there's no moral victories, but.
I'm tired of the debate over whether moral victories exist. Anyway, who dat? Go Saints. Easy, y'all.
Jameis is in the house. Eat a dub.